class, this is Dr. McGonigal with another Research Methods 2 lecture for you. Today we're going to talk about choosing a topic and searching the literature. Specifically, we'll talk about choosing a topic for your paper number 1, searching the research literature to find articles related to your paper number 1 topic, reading research articles, and how to create an APA-style reference list. So hopefully you've been thinking a little bit about topics for your paper number 1. Today you need to decide on a topic. A topic can be broad at this point, so you're not ready to create hypotheses just yet. So you can keep things a little bit more broad. Remember that your hypotheses need to be formulated based on the theory and the previous research findings that you uncovered during your literature search. Your topic for paper number 1 can be anything that you're interested in. The only restriction for it is that it has to relate to psychology in some way, because this is a psychology class. So what does that mean really? Well, it means that it could focus on things related to human cognitions, such as thinking, their emotions, such as feeling, and or behaviors, like acting. So to help you develop a topic, think about the following. So why do some people think, feel, or behave certain ways? Do certain groups of people think, feel, or behave in different ways than other groups of people? Can we change how people think, feel, or behave? And what are some effects of thinking, feeling, and behaving in this way? You may want to choose a similar topic as other members in your learning group. If you do, you can talk about your ideas and share resources, for instance, PDF articles that you find on your topic. You can also read each other's papers and provide each other with feedback. However, please keep in mind that you must also work on your paper number 1 independently. So you're going to write your own paper number 1 and everyone will submit their own paper number 1. So even if you do similar topics, it still has to come from you and be your own writing. So here are some examples of topics that students in my classes have worked on in the past. And notice that these aren't hypotheses yet. They're not statements of what they expect to find. They're pretty broad. Some examples are social media and mental health. I know some other students worked on social media and eating disorders. Eating disorders in college students more generally. Psychological effects of solitary confinement. Positive social relationships and suicidal ideation and depression in college students, effects of cognitive behavioral therapy on anxiety and depression, fear and staying in abusive relationships, music and the effects on mood, military training, and academic success. So you certainly do not need to choose one of these topics, but I wanted to give you just an idea of what some students have done in the past. Okay, so once you have chosen your topic, you are ready to begin searching the literature for theory and research findings that will help you formulate your hypotheses. And again, this is all related to your paper number 1. So, in order to conduct a literature search, you first want to identify keywords on the basis of your topic and write them down. So why do you want to write them down? Well, you want to write them down because you may go back later and want to do another search for your topic. But you don't want to repeat what you already did, right? So by writing them down, you have a record of what you did previously so you can do something different in the future. The more precise your keywords are, the more relevant the articles that you find will be. But I just mentioned earlier that your topics can be pretty broad at this point. So if you don't know a lot about your topic or you don't know where you want to go with it yet, start broad and read a few articles, and once you get a feel for the topic, you can narrow it down a little bit as you get to know the topic better. So I'm going to walk through some steps now. I will just talk through them on the slides first, and then I will demonstrate how you actually do it through the UNCC website. So number 2, go to the UNCC website, which is listed here, library.uncc.edu, and log in with your UNCC ID and password. Then you want to click on Databases, and from there, click on Databases by Subject and find Psychology and select PsycInfo. Luckily, PsycInfo is a really popular one, so there's more than one way to access PsycInfo. So you can click on the P in the alphabet listing, for instance, or you can click PsycInfo in the top 10. So it's one of those top 10. I am asking you to only use PsycInfo for this research project. And the reason is because I want you to focus on psychological articles, given that this is a psychology class. You know, other databases exist like Google search, and while those can be helpful, they can sometimes bring up other things that aren't relevant. So I would strongly prefer that you stick with PsycInfo for this class. Next, you want to type in the keywords that you came up with and that you documented. Number 6, you want to set limiters to make your search more targeted. So if you search for a pretty broad topic, you could end up with many, many articles, thousands of articles. So the limiters help you make it more specific to your topic. So the first limiter that you should always set is scholarly peer-reviewed journals. So always set that one because those are the only types of articles that you are allowed to use for paper 1 and paper 2 in this class. I also recommend that you limit to full text and to exclude dissertations. So I would suggest limiting to full text because otherwise it can be difficult to track articles down. Full text, if you limit it to that, will make sure that any search results that you obtain will be able to be downloaded by you straight from the library website. I also think you should exclude dissertations because they are not peer-reviewed published articles. You may have talked about peer review in your first research methods class, but essentially peer review is a check to make sure that the study is rigorous, it's well designed, and the writing is good. So because dissertations are not peer reviewed, you do not want to include them for this class. Number 7, you click search. Number 8, you browse the articles, so read the article titles and skim the abstracts. And here's a tip for you. In addition to primary research articles, in other words, articles where the researchers have collected data just for that research article from human participants or animal participants, you also want to look for systematic reviews or meta-analyses on your topic. So you probably learned in Research Methods 1 that a systematic review or a meta-analysis is a study of studies. It is a study that takes a lot of previous studies on a particular topic and synthesizes them and reports all of them in the same paper. Systematic reviews and meta-analyses are research studies, but they're secondary research studies because they're done on existing studies that have already been done, rather than gathering new data, say from participants in like at UNCC or participants elsewhere. These systematic reviews or meta-analyses will summarize a large body of literature for you and can help you get up to speed on a topic pretty quickly. Because they summarize a lot of other articles, rather than reading 100 articles on your topic, you can read one meta-analysis and get to the point pretty quickly. Okay, number 9, when you find an article that seems relevant and you want to save it, click on PDF full text. Click the arrow button near the top right to download the article and save it to your computer. Here's another tip for you. Create a folder that is just for this research project and save all of your articles, assignments, and notes in that folder. So make a folder either on your computer or on Dropbox, whatever your preference is there, and name it for this class, name it for paper number 1, and save everything related to paper number 1 in that folder. So that you can quickly access it. Tip number 2, name your journal articles with the last name of the first author and the year it was published. So why would that be helpful? Well, it is actually helpful because when you go in to write your paper, you're going to want to cite each of these articles. So by having the author's last name and the year, that makes the process of citing it much easier. Number 10, repeat this process until you have 10 articles that you think are relevant and important to your topic saved in your folder. This will be a starting point for your literature search. So why 10 articles? The reason I chose 10 at this point is because you need to have 10 articles for the assignment that you have due this week. So you are certainly welcome to choose more than 10 articles. In fact, the more the better. But you need a minimum of 10 articles for your assignment to start off this week. Make sure the articles that you include are research articles. So if you don't limit your research to scholarly peer-reviewed articles, you might get things like book reviews, dissertations, and master's theses. These are not allowed for your projects in this class. So make sure that you do limit your search to scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles. I should also note that meta-analyses and systematic reviews are, in fact, research articles. They're just secondary research studies because they use studies that have already been published. So you want to use what you learn from your literature review to update and refine your topic and turn it into a research question and then create specific hypotheses. So in order to do that, you should think about your literature review as an ongoing process. So it doesn't stop with those first 10 articles you find. Even though it's a good accomplishment to get those first 10 done and to get your assignment for this week done, you shouldn't consider that the end of your literature searching. The goal is to take what you learn from those 10 articles and then do a more targeted search, repeating the process until you have a good understanding of your topic and you can create hypotheses informed by theory and research. I included a link at the bottom of this slide to a resource that a UNCC librarian has created to help you with your searching process. Okay, so now let me demonstrate for you how you would go about conducting a literature search using the library website. So you can see here that I am on the library homepage, library.uncc.edu. I then want to scroll down to databases. So I'm going to click on databases, and there are a number of ways I can access PsycInfo. I can click on top 10 databases. I can do A through Z and search by P for PsycInfo. I can do databases by subject and find psychology and go from there. I am going to click on top 10 databases though, and now I will scroll down and I will find PsycInfo. Here it is. So the library will open PsycInfo for me, and I have a place to type in my keywords. So I'm going to search for job stress, and it gives me some suggestions for other keywords that I can also use. So I am going to select job stress or occupational stress or workplace stress. And because those are my keywords, I am also going to document them. So you can see here that I have started a document where I'm typing out my keywords. Okay, so I also want to apply some limiters, right? So the first one is that I want to click to only include scholarly peer-reviewed journals. I also want to only include full-text articles. I am going to leave everything else the same for now, but if you wanted to, you could go in and limit by certain dates, publication types, languages, humans, different population groups, different methodologies. But the only other one I'm going to check for now to start is exclude dissertations, and I click search. Okay, so I have now 6,187 articles on my topic of job stress, occupational stress, or workplace stress. I can see here that for the articles, all of the articles, they do have PDF full texts available. So if I want the PDF, I can simply click here, and it should bring me right to a version of a PDF. So say this is an article that I've read the abstract, I've read the title, it looks relevant, I want to save it. I'm going to go up here and click download, and then I can save it to a folder on my computer. I mentioned earlier that I suggest that you choose a specific folder or create a specific folder on your computer that you can save everything for project number 1. Okay, so once I've saved it, I can go back to my results list and I can look for other articles. Now, if I was a little bit too overwhelmed by the number of articles here and I wanted to maybe just do some general reading on my research topic first, I might look for a meta-analysis. So I would type in meta-analysis or systematic review and hit search. And remember, like I said earlier, that meta-analyses give you an overview of a wide variety of research studies in one study. So this one is about occupational health psychology interventions. So that would be about intervention studies. So if I was interested in stress interventions, I might look there. Burnout and depression. Not all of these are meta-analysis, but this one here is meta-analytic examination of regulatory strategies in the work stress process. So depending on what I find from my literature search here, I might decide to type in other search terms as well and refine it over time. Another tip that you might consider doing in order to help you decide if you want to narrow your topic down a little bit further is to click on subject. So I can see here that there are articles on job stress that are related to job satisfaction, well-being, employee attitudes, employee turnover, job performance, cardiovascular reactivity, for instance, fatigue, health, organizational commitment, all these different things. So if I wanted to limit my search to understand those particular things, I could go there to do that. I also may want to, say, limit my search to articles that have been published more recently. I can do that just by sliding this over. So say I just want things from 2010 to 2020. That can kind of further limit my results that I'm getting here. So good luck with your literature search, and definitely let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so coming back to the slides, after you have gathered your 10 articles and you have them saved into your folder for paper number 1 and they're all relevant to your topic and you feel satisfied with them, you want to start reading them. So number 1, read and summarize your relevant articles. And we'll talk a little bit more about reading your articles and how to do that in just a moment. You want to make notes for yourself on each study's main research questions. So what was the research question that the authors were trying to answer in their research study? You also want to make notes for yourself on each study's variables, including how they are defined. This is going to be super helpful for you down the line when you're trying to operationalize your variables or talk about how you would measure them. So note what the variables are and how they are specifically defined in that research study, because you'll have to do that for your paper number 1 as well. Number 4, make notes for yourself on the argument the researchers are making as to why they are proposing the hypotheses in the way that they are. So I've been saying all along that for your paper number 1, it's deductive, which means that we're focusing on theory and previous research to help support our hypotheses. So this is the point for number 4. So make those notes for yourself is in terms of how are the authors, how are the researchers arguing for the reason that they are proposing their hypotheses the way that they are. Number 5, make notes on each study's findings. Did their findings support what they had proposed or not? Number 6, take what you've learned and refine your research question on the basis of the literature search results. So after you've summarized those 10 articles, think about them as a whole. Think about how they might inform your research question for your paper number 1. For example, maybe you can narrow your topic down, or you can decide to focus on a specific population, such as like elderly individuals or college students, or perhaps you have figured out what variables you want to focus on by looking at the results of that literature search. Number 7, go back with new or revised keywords based on what you did in number 6 and search again with the new keywords or limiters. Kind of repeat the process. All right, let's move on to discussing how you can read research articles. So I would suggest reading the abstract first, and the abstract is a summary of the entire research study, and it gives you an idea of what the authors proposed, how they did their study, what their results were, and some implications from their study. It gives you a brief synopsis. So if the article is relevant to your topic and your research question in some way, based on reading the abstract, then you should continue reading the full article. If not, then you don't read the article. So don't waste your time reading articles that aren't relevant to your topic. You want to read in a quiet, non-distracting environment. Research articles can be very difficult or challenging to read. There might be words in there that you don't know that you have to look up. You might have to really think about what you're reading, so try to be in a quiet environment if you can. I suggest using highlighting and comments in PDF. So you can add highlighting, you can add comments, and that just helps me personally stay on track when I'm reading an article. I actually like printing them out and writing on the actual printed article, but that's not possible now because I'm not on campus. So I use the highlighting tool and the comments tool in PDF. Keep a Word document going, so type notes on each article as you read. So you might want to put the title of the article, like copy and paste the title of the article into a Word document, and then type a quick summary underneath. Don't just copy and paste the abstract, but really type it in your own words. That's going to help you in terms of your understanding of the article, but it'll also ensure that you're not plagiarizing when you go to create your paper number 1. Reread if necessary, and think about the research critically and question it. So take what you've learned in the methods review that we just went over, and also what you learned in Research Methods 1, and apply it to this article. Does it appear to be done well? Are the methods rigorous? Are they appropriate? And question it. In terms of a general format of APA-style papers, they all follow the same basic guidelines, and this is meant to help you follow them more quickly. So I just mentioned what the abstract was, provides an overview summary. Introduction reviews the relevant literature, states the logic behind the hypotheses to be tested. So the authors are going to make their case for their hypotheses based on previous theory and findings. In the method, the authors provide the reader with an explanation of what they did in the study. What was the design? Was it experimental or non-experimental? Who were the participants? What did the participants do as part of the study? They also talk about measures in that section. So how was each variable measured? The results section provides the reader with the results of statistical analyses that evaluate their hypotheses. And the discussion provides the reader with a statement evaluating the results in light of the hypotheses, and also talks about theoretical and practical implications of the results and limitations. While you're reading research articles, you want to ask yourself, how did the authors define the key psychological constructs in their study? So you may have heard this word construct before, and if you don't remember what it is, let me remind you that it's essentially what you are studying. So in the example that I showed you using the UNCC library, I was looking up job stress. That might be a psychological construct. Why is it a construct? Well, it's a construct because you can't really tangibly observe it, right? We know when someone is stressed. We might think we know that someone is stressed, but we can't necessarily see it. So we have to go ahead and operationalize it, and it becomes a variable in our study. So a psychological construct is something that we can't necessarily tangibly touch, but it exists, and we use variables to measure it. Another question is, what did previous research studies report on this study topic in their literature review? Another question is, what theory or theories did the authors use to help understand their topics or to propose their hypotheses? And we went over a theory in our last video, but as a reminder, a theory is an explanatory framework that helps explain why phenomena are the way that they are. What was their rationale for the hypotheses that they proposed? Does that rationale make sense to you? Why or why not? So remember how I said earlier that hypotheses don't just come out of nowhere. They're not random. They are in fact based in logic, in previous research findings, and in theory. What methods did the authors use to test their hypotheses? Are there any potential problems with these methods based on what you know about research methods? Keep in mind that no study is perfect and there are pros and cons to every study design. Think about what we went over in our last class on internal and external validity. So remember what internal and external validity were? Well, if you don't, internal validity is the degree of confidence we have in the findings being due to what the experimenters did or what the researchers did, either in the experimental design or the non-experimental design. So how confident are you that the results that you're observing are due to a manipulation or due to the predictor variable that's included in the study? External validity has to do with generalizability. So can the results generalize to other people and populations? While you're reading, keep in mind that you do not need to understand all the statistics. I don't expect that from you. On a very basic level, remember that p of less than 0.05 indicates statistical significance. This means that there's only a 5% chance that the finding occurred by chance and indicates support for the author's hypotheses. I don't expect you to do sophisticated analysis techniques or to understand them, but you should be able to evaluate whether or not the authors found support for their hypotheses. Later, we'll talk about running your own analyses. As part of your assignment due this week, you need to create an APA-style reference list. So I have these last two slides that show you how to do that. First, you want to make sure that you're arranging your references in alphabetical order by the author's last name. You want to indent the second line, but have the first line go flush left. And articles follow the format that is listed here on the slide. Here's what I mean by flush left and second line indented. So in this example here, we have, it's one of my articles, so my name is starting off the citation, the reference, and you can see that it's flush left here, and then the second line is indented. So we have the authors, myself, and that's my first initial and my second initial. We have the other authors listed next. We have in parentheses the year that the study was published. Then we have the title of the study, which is Individual and Work Factors Related to Perceived Workability and Labor Force Outcomes. Notice how the title of the study only has the first letter of the first word that is capitalized. Not every word is capitalized in the title of the study. The next is the journal name. The journal is the Journal of Applied Psychology, and for that, all of the letters are capitalized. All of the first letters are capitalized, and they are italicized. 100 is the volume number, and that's also italicized. 376 through 398 are the page numbers, and there's something called the DOI. Every article has a DOI, so you need to include those in your references as well. The DOI is HTTPS, and then you have the DOI that follows. I want to let you know that if you find a very recent research article that has been published in 2020, it may not have volumes, issues, or page numbers yet. A lot of times, research journals will put articles online ahead of when they go to print. And so if they're not in print yet, they won't have those volumes, issues, or page numbers. And here's an example of how you can do a citation for a journal article that's not yet in print. So you can see the format of the author's names are the same. The year here is 2020. You have the title of the article. You have the journal title, italicized and starting with capital letters. Then you see it says Advanced Online Publication, and you have the DOI. So it's pretty much the same, but instead of volume and page numbers, you have Advanced Online Publication. There is a shortcut to get the APA citation from PsycInfo, but a lot of times those aren't correct, so you need to check to make sure it's correct. In addition to Google Scholar, it's also available through PsycInfo, so I'll show you how to get that through PsycInfo. So I'm going back into my search on job stress, occupational stress, or workplace stress, and let's say I want the citation or the reference for this first article. So I'm going to click on it. Then I will go over to where it says Cite on the right-hand side and click that. And you will see that it brings up a way of citing it in different types of formats. So I want APA, right? And so I'm going to grab this, hit copy. Then I'll go into the document and I want to actually make sure that I am pasting it without formatting. So if I paste it with formatting, this is what happens, and it's hard to see here, but you can see that there's some gray in the background there, and you don't want that. So I pasted it without the formatting, and then I have to go in and format it. So I need to italicize the journal name. It looks like it is formatted correctly in terms of the capital letters and everything. This looks okay, so these are the author's names, that's the year, and then you have the title. That looks correct. It looks like it is online first. There's no volume number, so I'm going to go ahead and type advanced online publication instead of the volume and the page numbers, and there's my citation. I also need to make sure that I have the indentations right, so I'm going to go up into Word and indent it a little bit, but I then need to go back and make sure the first line is not indented. So that would be my correctly formatted APA style reference. Okay, so getting back to the slides, you also want to see your APA manual textbook. That was optional, but there is some additional assistance at the link that I provided there. Also, please check the sample papers that I've provided on campus and the sample completed assignment that I provided on Canvas if you want to see some other examples. Here's a sample APA style reference list, and again, you'll find that in those samples that I just mentioned. You can see references at the top and it's bold, centered, and then you have alphabetically ordered by the author, the first author's last name.